All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're now going to talk about Kenny Pickett and his comments on his fresh start with the Eagles. So, read a couple of articles, and basically, he was unhappy. Supposedly, he was unhappy with, them signing Russell Wilson. And another thing, too, is that, he refused to be the emergency quarterback in Week 17 against the Seahawks. And, he talked about his fresh start. So this is basically what he said in his press conference. He said, just think this is a good reset. Just a chance to play on this team in that quarterback room with a couple of great guys, helping those guys out any way I can and just be ready if my number's called somewhere down the road. Just trying to put my best foot forward and be an asset to the team. He also said, I think the communication is what it is. It was behind closed doors. I'm confident in the way I handled it. I handled it the way I should have handled it. I'm excited to be here. It worked out so well that Philly was the place I ended up landing in. I think everything happens for a reason, and I'm right where I'm supposed to be. He also said, I think that goes back. This talks about the emergency quarterback thing that I just mentioned. He said, I think that goes back to a lot of the communication behind closed doors that didn't go the way that I feel like they went in how it's getting released. There was a plan there for the game. It went down exactly the way it was planned to go down that entire week. I was coming off of the ankle surgery. It is what it is, and like I've been saying, I'm very happy to be here. And then this is what he talked about with his time in Pittsburgh, and he said, I think you always learn more from the adversities in life than a lot of your success stories. Just putting my head down and going back to work and doing what I love. I love to play the game. I want to get back to having fun, getting a chance to meet these guys, and I already feel it's a great environment here with the coaching staff and these players. So, I mean, he's looking for a fresh start. But yeah, it just seemed like his time in Pittsburgh kind of just went on a downward spiral after the injury. Because I was reading an article by Mike Florio, and it basically just talked about that he was just not happy with Russell Wilson being signed, and so it goes by saying Pickett canceled an out-of-town workout with Steelers receivers the day after Wilson agreed to sign with the Steelers. Also, the article talks about how Pickett's behavior late in the season, after he returned from ankle surgery, it just was not positive. His behavior was. When Mason Rudolph basically was still going to be the starter. And, again, talked about him not wanting to suit up as the emergency quarterback in Week 17. I guess the best thing for him was, the Steelers move off of him and he goes somewhere else. Because it happened so fast. They signed Russell Wilson. Mason Rudolph, he ends up signing with the Titans, and they ended up trading Kenny Pickett. And it was like, well, who's the backup quarterback going to be? And then that's why the Steelers went out and they traded. Hopefully, they don't want Fields to play that much. They end up just giving up a 6th-round pick for Justin Fields. So what the Steelers did, was great. But yeah, for Kenny Pickett, I kind of defended him because I feel like, again, he was another guy that just really didn't get a fair chance. But again, the Steelers, they wanted to move in a different direction, and what they've done, was smart. You get Russell Wilson on a very cheap deal, and you don't give up that much for Justin Fields. So with Kenny Pickett, again, the numbers aren't very, the numbers are not that great. 2,400 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 76.7 rating. 2,000 yards passing in 2023, 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, an 81.4 rating. The numbers are not great. But you know what? The Steelers were winning games, when Kenny Pickett was playing, whether you like it or not. They were winning games. Now, were they winning games because of him or in spite of him? Yeah, you look at the Browns game in Week 2, the Steelers' defense scored 2 defensive touchdowns. The Steelers' defense can score points on their own. Yeah, I mean, I think what the Steelers did was the right thing to do. They moved off of him. They did something that was un-Steeler-like, and they pulled the plug, which I don't think a lot of people expected. You thought Kenny Pickett was going to compete with Russell Wilson for the starting job, um, but I guess that just was not the case. I guess he just wanted out. And the thing is, too, there's a lot of stuff that happened behind closed doors that we're never going to know. And I think he's trying to, kind of clear the air from his perspective. But you're going to have people that are just going to say, well, you kind of were being a bad teammate, you know. And listen, that happens. And yeah, you don't want to see yourself lose the starting job. But listen, he ended up getting hurt. And really the reason why the Steelers went on that downward spiral is because of Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky, replaced him, and he did not play. Mitchell Trubisky did not play well at all. They lost to the Patriots. They lost to, well, the Colts were a good team this year, or last year. They lost to them. The offense really couldn't get anything going, and that's why they made the change to Mason Rudolph, which, listen, I didn't think Mason Rudolph was going to do well. Mason Rudolph stepped in, and they won every single game he started up until the playoff game against the Bills, and they made it. So, a credit to Mike Tomlin for making that move, and credit to Mason Rudolph for being able to, rally the team and help them make it to the playoffs. Now, again, they beat the Ravens backups the last week of the regular season, but again, that wasn't an easy task. It's still the Ravens, and they did it. They went on the road in bad weather. They won that game. They won in Seattle. Seattle was was probably the most impressive win out of the three games, just because it's on the road, hostile environment, and Seattle's fighting for a playoff spot too. So, you got to give Mason Rudolph credit there, and here's the other thing too. It's bad when you have the players advocating for Mason Rudolph to be the starter for next season. So, again, that also has to tell you, a little bit more about Kenny Pickett, but again, I mean, he got hurt. And listen, when you got something good going, you're not going to pull the plug on it. I mean, you go back to Dak Prescott's rookie season. He's winning all these games, and, Tony Romo got hurt in the preseason, and then Romo's healthy. I mean, they kept talking about it week to week. Jerry Jones kept talking about it, like, are you going to go back to Romo? Well, that never happened, because you're like, listen, right now we're the 1 seed. Our team's playing really well. We don't want to pull the plug on this right now. So, I mean, if this was like, Tom Brady, I mean, they're going to put Brady back in, but it was Tony Romo. I mean, and not to say Tony Romo wasn't a good quarterback, but again, Romo had an injury history, and they elected to stick with Dak, but here, I mean, Kenny Pickett's only in his second year, so it's not like, you're not going back to a Hall of Fame quarterback. It's a guy in his second season, so he hasn't really earned that yet. So yeah, with the Eagles, yeah, he's a backup quarterback. That's what he is right now, and we'll see what if anything happens. Again, if you're an Eagles fan, you don't want to see Kenny Pickett out there. You want to see Jalen Hurts playing the full season. But yeah, I mean, he's gonna have to embrace this backup quarterback role. But I mean, obviously, what do you want him to say? That he was like, yeah, I refused to, suit up because, I was not happy with the decisions that the team was making. I mean, yeah, he's not going to say that. So, but yeah, I guess he's appreciative of his fresh start now with the Eagles. He's being a backup quarterback now. That's his role. And yeah, but it's, they had, he went to Pittsburgh, he went to Pitt, they draft him, he was looked at as, yeah, he's going to be the next guy, right? Well, it just never happened. And like, again, towards the end of, 2022, I mean, you have that comeback win against the Ravens, then you beat the Browns, and you need a little bit of help to get into the playoffs, but they didn't get it. They finished 9-8. I mean, I thought he played good down the stretch, but then, the offense got off to a little bit of a slow start. I mean, you play the 49ers at home, and the 49ers just, you didn't deserve to be on the same field as them. You struggled on offense in week 2. Again, the Steelers defense bailed them out. 2 defensive touchdowns. So, and obviously Matt Canada was kind of holding him back a little bit. You got to factor that in. Because, again, I think they did put up 400 yards of offense against the Bengals, but, again, they only put up 16 points. So, and then he gets hurt. But, I mean, that's what he's really focused on now. He's focused on his future with the Eagles, like I said. He really just dismissed all the reports of his negative reaction to Russell Wilson signing. But, yeah, again, like, what did you want him to say? But, it's a fresh start for him, like I said. And, the Steelers, they got a new quarterback room, like I said. And it's going to be interesting to see, how things play out for them next year. And I think they're in a better position than they were, a couple weeks ago, before they signed Russ. So, but the thing is, they're in a loaded division. Bengals, Browns, Ravens. I mean, it's a gauntlet. So, let's see if, Russell Wilson is up to the task. I'm looking forward to see what he can do in Pittsburgh. Although, I kind of said I don't really expect the Seattle Russ. I expect more of what we got in Denver, but we'll see. So, before I go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link, and that is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show. Makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. Again, GSMCPodcast.net. I had to do that because, again, I just went right into the old link at the top of the show. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll discuss Marquise Brown and his reasoning for joining the Chiefs. So we'll get into that when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.